A Vindication of the Rights of Women is, of course, a unique work, but it does not emerge out of the 18th century without its antecedents, that is, other works concerned about the role and rights of women. As it was essential to know its political setting, the Vindication is read far more profitably against this background of English feminism, the social and economic realities of women's place in society, and the various writers concerned about that place. Still, Wollstonecraft is not so much the inheritor of a feminine tradition as she is the writer of its manifesto. Before Wollstonecraft, there were works suggesting the reform of female manners or proposals for improving female education, but there was no single-minded criticism of the social and economic system which created a double standard of excellence for male and female and relegated women to an inferior status. The 18th century inherited an unfavorable amalgam of attitudes about women. The Puritan reformers, good religious fundamentalists, encouraged submissiveness in women, passivity, dependence on men, limited education, a general containment and restriction of the, quote, weaker vessel. The Cavalier Court of Charles II replaced puritanical disdain and restriction with ribald licentiousness, a thoroughgoing contempt and sexual exploitation of females, having no place for Renaissance idealism. But if the 17th century woman was kept from books or insulted at court, the workaday life of the rural or urban woman in the economy of the community had remained relatively unchanged since medieval times, and was a far more independent one than her sisters would be 100 years later. The aristocratic woman, to be sure, led a non-productive life, divorced from the working routine of the community, but the wife of the farmer, small shopkeeper or tradesman, actively participated in the productive work which maintained the economy of the household. No man would consider, when marrying a woman, that he was obliged to undertake the burden of her support until she died. If she were the wife of a farmer, she generally kept a dairy business, bringing eggs, butter, and cheese regularly to market. She participated in seasonal harvests and kept the accounts. If it were a large farm, superintending the servants and managing the care of the small children. While domestic industries thrived, the entire household, including children, participated in spinning and weaving cloth within the home. The wife of the shopkeeper in town worked alongside her husband behind the counter, with the entire household, servants and children living above the shop. One need not imply by this that women enjoyed an equal status with men in the working world. The trade guilds had restricted the training of women and had for centuries maintained them as a cheap pool of surplus labor. But women traditionally shared through their husbands the social and religious life of the guild, and if a woman, wife or daughter survived the death of her male relation, she often carried on in his craft. With practice, she continued well into the 18th century. But apart from sharing her husband's work, there were a number of specific trades which were entirely dominated by women until the 18th century, in which a woman owned her own property, maintained her own apprentices, and was responsible for her own debts as an independent trader. Most of these trades were based in the manufacture of food or functioning of the household, such as brewing, baking, dyeing cloth, and preparing meat. Paradoxically then, while the 18th century would be notable in calling the reform of female manners, the 17th century woman, in spite of vilification by 17th century Puritanism and Cavalier poets, was an active, productive member of the economic life of the community. The range of her activities was limited, but she had far more of the economic independence which Mary Wollstonecraft tried to reclaim for her sex a century later.